Hi everyone, and welcome to the May edition of the Montessori Show with Simone Davies
and Jeanne-Marie Paynel, speaking to you from San Diego from Voilà Montessori. Hello, everybody.
It's so nice to see you again, and I'm super excited for tonight's edition. We're going to be talking all about toddlers, my favorite people.
Yes, and we have lots of questions actually that have come in for you on this topic. So that's wonderful. I did want to make just one small announcement, and we'll share this again towards the end. The May show is going to be our last show, and we're going to take a little 2-month summer break. Simone will be traveling to Australia, and I will be traveling to France. So we decided to just let it be, let you enjoy the summer, and we'll pick up in August, on the last Friday of August, which will be August 26th.
Yeah, that's great. Also, just to let you know, we'll do our best to get to all your questions. We've had quite a few come in before the show, and I already see some coming in the chat box. If you're joining us, try and jump on a computer, because if you follow on an iPad, you might find that you don't have the access to the chat box. At the moment, just drop in there, say hello, and tell us where you're from. I can already see that Catherine made it from I Believe in Montessori, which is super fun. And Katka is also online from Slovakia. So welcome, everybody. Feel free to pop your questions in there.
Okay. So let me know, Simone, when you're ready for, I have quite a few questions here for you. Concerning just activities with toddlers. One of them is actually a parent with 20-month-old twin, girl-boy, and she wants to know how to introduce Montessori activities in a way that keeps them calm and paying attention, and also how do I keep them from just dumping everything that I have prepared for them. My children have a hard time sitting at their table and focusing on an activity. Am I expecting too much, or have I not found the right work for them yet? So that's a loaded question about activities and about knowing what is the appropriate work.
Yeah, it's a super interesting one, and twins are always going to have another sibling at the same age interested in the same work, so that does add a different dynamic to it as well. But what we're looking for is to just keep following each child and seeing what things really tend to engage them. So it's about often the choice of activity, like she says. Am I just still not maybe finding the activity that they are ready for? And I think that when you find that activity that really engages them, you'll see them repeat and repeat and want to master it. So around 21 months, they might be into threading activities. And then you can see, oh, I see this shoelace is too difficult, but this one with a wooden end, they're actually having some success with and can stick at the activity longer. They might be doing 9-piece puzzles, or they might not be doing any puzzles, or they might be already onto composition puzzles. So it really depends on their child. So it's hard for me to make recommendations exactly for their age, except to just say every time I rotate toys and change an activity, I might put it in front of the child and see how interested they are. If it's too difficult, they might throw it. If it's too easy, they might throw it. And even there might be ways you can modify the activity, like having too many pieces out. So we have some pegboards in the class that the children really enjoy, but sometimes you'll just find a younger child will just dump all of them. So I might actually hold the bowl and give them one by one to help them from just dumping it, or I might put out less pieces so they can concentrate and they don't get so, oh, all I want to do is throw all these little pieces in the air. Right. Other things that came up for me when I heard the question was how to set up the activities. And this is something I'm quite passionate about, is making all the activities look very engaging. So having beautiful trays, one per activity, or a basket so that the children can manage it themselves. They can even work at the shelf if they're not sitting at the table. Like maybe they don't want to sit, maybe they want to stand to work. And so that's okay. Have maybe different heights and see if that works better. You might even want to offer them a separate table each so that they don't interrupt each other, or have a rug area that they can maybe roll out and make a workspace that way too. And you can say, oh, this is my work, this is my area, and hope that those kind of things. We're going to be talking, I think, a little bit later in the show about sharing and working with siblings and that kind of thing. So hopefully that will help as well.
Yeah.
Yeah? You want
No,
to
I
say
was
something?
just, I was just going to add that, when you say about seeing what they're engaged, I mean, again, it's that whole part about observing and really taking the time to observe in a very non-judgmental. It's not about, oh, they're not interested or it's too hard. It's just kind of, taking mental notes or even journaling about what it is they're doing and where you see they might be having a challenge. So breaking up the activity for them to maybe master whatever, part of, like you said, you said bead stringing. Maybe at the beginning they just need one bead just to concentrate on that one, eye-hand coordination. And once they've mastered that, then they can, string all of them and so forth. And then just also wanted to emphasize that piece that you said about not necessarily sitting at a table. I think it's really important to know that with toddlers, they like to work wherever they are. So if it's standing at the shelf, as long as they're focused and doing the work, I think we need to be okay with that.
Yeah. And one other thing about introducing an activity to a toddler is that sometimes we say, oh, look, it goes here and you turn this and it opens like this. And we're so busy talking that they don't know whether to listen to us or whether to watch. And so often I use very little language when I'm actually showing an activity. Jeanne-Marie, you can't see her on screen, but she's going like this. And instead, I just say something like, look, and then I really emphasize the movement.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And show them how maybe to open a jar or something like this themselves. Also, some of the Montessori activities need to be super expensive. You might find that they like posting. So then you set up a posting activity that can be a shoebox and they're putting things inside and finding them again. And one of our favorite activities for toddlers, usually up to 2 years old and beyond, is opening and closing different containers. So we have different purses and jars, and I hide little objects inside even to give them, then they're opening zippers and press studs. So things around the home can also be used. You don't have to spend a lot of money on buying lots of toys for every milestone.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many activities around the home. I mean, they're looking in our drawers anyway. So, let's look and see what we have. And just that piece that you said about not over talking or over explaining. I have a little acronym that I like to share with parents, which is SHOW. When we show an activity, it's slow hands, omit words. So the word show just spells that out. Slow hands, omit words. And we're slowing down our movement so that they can really analyze and really figure out what it is that they're needing to do. And we're not talking because where would they look if we were talking? Probably our mouth, and then they're not focused on what needs to be done. So slow hands, omit words is the best policy when we're showing young children an activity that we want them to master. So some more questions here. I have a parent here that is asking about a 20-month-old and concerned that she feels that her daughter is not concentrating, that her daughter sometimes concentrates not more than 5 or 10 minutes maximum. And she's not sure if this is normal and wondered if you had any tips on how I can use this toddler inquisitiveness to my best advantage.
Yeah. Well, I would say that 5 to 10 minutes can be in the very normal range for a toddler, depending on what the activity is for. Including them in daily life activities, I tend to find their concentration increases because there's so many little steps and we can help them build their concentration that way. So that might be like getting them involved to start setting the table with us, and I'm going to carry a glass, and you can offer your toddler to also carry a glass and show them all the steps of setting a table. And at first you'll be doing it alongside each other, and then gradually maybe the toddler can take over more steps by themselves. I definitely think that maybe say it's a toy that she's playing with for 5 to 10 minutes, we can look at, are we interrupting them? Sometimes we're so busy saying, oh, good job, and look at this, and telling them, oh, look, there's a cow, and here there's a thing. And sometimes we actually break their concentration. I've occasionally thought, okay, I think this child could sit at the table with the work. And then all of a sudden I say, here, it goes on the table, and they walk off. And I'm like, I just interrupted them. So sometimes we just have to be very careful not to step in too soon. And on the other hand, if you see them getting up from an activity, it might be an opportunity to say, oh, look, it goes like this, or did you try it this way? And give them another way to look at the activity that might engage them. Or if they've got stuck, when they're getting to that point of frustration, let them struggle. And then before they give up, you can step in and just say, look, and maybe adjust a little bit of the activity. And that might give them enough to be able to concentrate for longer as well. Yeah, again, it's similar to the first question as well, is what activities are your child really interested in? And then keep providing more and more opportunities for them to master those. And there's going to be more than enough time for them to get through all the different stages. So if they're in an animal stage, then you could have lots of opportunities for working with the farm and having books about animals and going out into the garden and into the streets and lots of things like this as well. So choosing activities and following your child, observing again what they're interested in, and keep looking out for activities that would continue to develop those areas. There's also one mum whose boy was into maps, and she let him look at a big atlas, and he would make maps including all the rivers and things like this. So she would just keep following his interest in that area. Obviously not for a 20-month-old, but it does just show what are they interested in. Or they just love like these maps of the world, and I'm going to keep encouraging that by just continuing. First we do our local area, now the whole country, and it just can get bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's true. I noticed too. I mean, this was more in the primary classroom, but just their fascination with maps. If you really follow them, I remember I had a boy who could do all the puzzle maps, but then it went from naming all the countries, then it was associating all the flags with every puzzle piece. I mean, it was just amazing how far they can go when they're interested with an activity. So really being able to follow them is beautiful. Wonderful. So I do have I have a question that actually was asked by two different parents. And I don't know if you want to talk about this, but this is about using sign language in the Montessori environment for the preverbal child who is a hearing child, has proper hearing and everything. How do you feel about the use of sign language?
I actually have no problem with baby signs, and I'm interested to hear Jeanne-Marie as well. Babies are very good at absorbing language, and to them, I feel like it's just another language that they're learning. And because they don't need to make the sounds, they can, from a very early age, be able to communicate themselves communicate what they need and those kind of things. So we did baby signs with our children, and Oliver spoke very late, and I was thinking, oh, maybe I interfered with his development because I was doing baby signs, but he was really useful. He could tell me more, or he could say that he wanted to eat, and then as he got more proficient, he could even say more food, so he was making a small sentence, which is really amazing. And he wasn't really a super frustrated child because he was able to communicate. We were out bushwalking one day, and he did a sign for bird when he pointed up to the sky. And so I might have been talking about the leaves, or yes, you could see the blue, but actually I realized that his attention was on the bird. So for us, it really opened up a way that we could communicate. And then we did it also with my daughter, and she was just a very verbal child. So I would say, would you like more? And she'd just say more. And I thought, okay, well, I don't think I actually delayed his development. If she can communicate it, she would just say the word. But what I also found useful is that they recommend introducing 3 signs at a time. This is when I did it 15 years ago. So it may have changed a little bit then. And we started with more, milk, and eat. And it forced me to slow down a little bit. You can hear I talk fast, I get very excited. And so instead I was saying, would you like more? More? And it actually made me slow down. So I think that it's useful. And if a child's in a Montessori environment and they come up often with their own signs so that you can understand them. Anyway, I'm curious if Jeanne-Marie, you have any different ideas.
No, I would tend to agree with you. I mean, the idea of sign language is not to stop actually verbalizing the words. You're doing both. You're giving the sign and saying the words so that they're hearing them, but they're also seeing them. And I think it's delightful way to be able to communicate with that child in that pre-verbal stage where they know what they want, and their words are there, but they're not yet able to verbalize it. And it can be a very frustrating time for them if they're not able to get their message across. So those signs are, pretty basic, and they're able to let us know what they need. So I do really like it. I just, emphasize that it is not about replacing spoken language. It's really about complementing it and helping the child to be able to express themselves a little earlier on than, waiting to have the ability to verbalize things. So yeah, I know that with, I did not know about sign language when my children were growing up. And I know with my son, I wish I had, because I do specifically remember a stage where he was pre-verbal. He knew what he wanted, and I just did not understand. And it was frustrating for the both of us. I do remember how my daughter, who's just 4 years older than he is, I don't know what it is with children. They tend to understand each other much better. And she was able to kind of translate sometimes what he needed. But I do wish I had those signs to help him out a little bit more. So I do encourage using sign language if you can.
There's one more thing to add as well, is that probably you can start from around 8 months introducing signs. So even though this is a toddler show, I guess it's not too late if you have to complement already the language that you're doing with your toddlers, but you can start quite young.
Totally. Yeah, you can start. I mean, we start talking at, to newborn. So definitely, start with them. I had another question about now again activities, and this is a 14-month-old. The parent is wanting to teach them how to pour water into their cup, but she's just concerned that he tends to throw things. And so how do we go about working on the throwing behavior and still wanting to be able to use glass and such? So do you have any advice for that?
I think that sounds like a tricky combination. I have had a child who was in our class, and he was in a throwing stage, and we had little fragile bottles available for the flower arranging activity, and just broke 5 bottles in one class. And the mother was quite distraught because it was so upsetting to have the glass break. And this is one occasion when I don't get the children to help clean up. I make sure that they're safe on the side, and I say, this is for an adult to do, it's very sharp, and that kind of thing. So actually, I would prefer to maybe wait just until the throwing behavior has calmed down a little bit, and maybe 2 weeks, and then try again. And if they throw again, then you can say, oh, it doesn't look like we're ready to do that, and I put it away. I mean, otherwise, another option is you can show them how to pour, but with maybe an enamel kind of cup, something that's not so easily to break, but that's not plastic. So there are other options. Do you have enamel? Is that what you would call it in the States?
Enamel or earthware, I think they call it.
Yeah, something like this, so that you could not only, you could start showing them how to pour. And the amount of water that I use when I'm showing a child how to pour water or to drink is just a very tiny little bit, because you know that it might spill. And I always have a hand mitt also at the ready. Here in the Netherlands, we can get them just from Hamer. I don't know about you guys. We don't have to do any sewing. And you can have them on the table ready in case there's a spill, and your child can keep practicing. This week I got asked twice, what if my child just wants to play with the water, tip up the glass and pour it out? Then I just explain, this glass is for drinking. It looks like you're not wanting to drink. I'll put the glass away. And then I'd offer it again later. Are you ready to drink? And if they again just tip up the water, then I take the glass away. And then we even talked about setting up a tray. This is a tray for pouring to practice, with maybe a sponge and some, water activity. And this is our glass for drinking. And then it's very clear which is for playing and which is for drinking.
So I have another question again about siblings, and this is again twins. This is a parent that has a 4.5 year-old daughter that goes to a Montessori school, but she has 1.5-year-old twin boys at home. And she's kind of wanting some advice as to how to get them to kind of do their own work and not always interrupt each other.
Yeah, I think this is perfect for the sharing question.
Yes, yes.
Because twins, you have two children who are going to be similarly, interested in similar toys. And I don't recommend having two of everything to keep the peace, because it's an opportunity to learn to wait their turn and to work out a way to work together. So these days I'm tending to step back a little bit to see how the situation unfolds before I step in and say, that's Leon's work or that's Maya's work, because I want to see if they can maybe say, oh, it's my turn, it will be available soon. Together, I'm actually interrupting them if they're actually trying to collaborate. And then I stand nearby to guide them when things maybe don't go wrong, because around 1.5, it's going to be more difficult to play cooperatively. But with twins, they are there 24/7. So there's sometimes they are more interested, less in parallel play, but also playing together sometimes. So what I would recommend is to come up with what are the rules of your house. So in our Montessori playgroup, we have kind of the ground rule is that everyone can work with an activity for as long as they like. And then when it's back on the shelf, then it's available for someone else to work with. And so if there's one child working with a toy and someone else is really trying to take a piece of their puzzle or these kind of things, we're trying to maintain that that they're in that 1.5-year-old, they're really deep in concentration. They're very much in a me-I stage, and they don't want someone to take their piece of puzzle. So we want to, it's at 8 o'clock on a Friday night and I've lost my words, but we want to protect and preserve that space to say it's important that they can finish their work. So we would say it will be available soon, and then we might just let them see if they need any more help, but maybe they can just watch. If they're really still trying to touch, it's like, I can't let you touch it. And then maybe I might say, yeah, I know you really want to play with it. And then I'll really connect, but then maybe redirect and say, let's play with this while we're waiting. And then make sure that when the other toy is available, that they can come back to it. So in our house, when my kids were toddlers, I had the same rule. I kind of said, oh, it's Oliver's turn now, and it will be available soon, or it will be Emma's turn. That said, once they were fighting over a vehicle, and I said, I don't know, you guys are good at solving problems. How are we going to solve this? One truck and 2 kids. And Oliver took the front wheels and kept them for himself and gave her the back wheels. And Emma was 8 months old and he was 2. So, it's kind of like they can even solve problems at such a young age. So sometimes we don't need to. If it's low level, no one's getting hurt, maybe don't need to step in and solve every problem anyway.
Yes, and
I forgot the question. I even answered it.
No, and I like that about putting the children in the same boat, like especially with siblings. It's like, letting them know that I have faith that you can figure this out and that you can come up with the solutions. So that it's really important to not be the cop or saying, oh, you can't be doing this and you should be doing this. It's really letting them know, I have faith in you to figure this out. There's only one car. How are you going to work together? What is your solution? So that's a very good point.
Before we run on to the next question, Lisa also added that it's good to actually use a sign language that is known in a country, for example, British Sign Language, so that rather than just a made-up signs, they may actually be able to help someone with a hearing difficulty as well. Yes. So they also learn a practical skill of signing. There's also a few other people. Good point. Yeah. There's also a few people who say hi. Unfortunately, I can't read Russian, but they're in France, Montpellier. Hello. And hello to Alan. And she's very excited because she got her question answered. Very cool. Alex is also online from Amsterdam. Hi, Alex. I know Alexandra. Nice to see you.
My daughter. Okay, so this is for an older child. I'm going to focus on the toddlers. If we have time, we will answer some of the other questions. So I did have another question, and I don't know if you want to talk about this because I know it can be a delicate subject, but it's around toilet education, toilet independence, toilet awareness, and there's some different, I guess, thoughts on how early or how soon, and what is it to really follow the child. So this is a question about a 17-month-old, and the mother just had a question about that she began toilet learning, and she's just having a lot of questions as to how to go about it, and maybe also if it's too soon. So would you like to touch on that, Simone? Because I know you're working a lot with toddlers, and what is your thought on that?
Yeah, I think that a lot of Montessori teachers like to introduce the idea of toilet learning quite early, and they say there's a sensitive period for toilet learning around 17, 18 months. And I think they're saying, the question was also saying, we're noticing that they're interested, that they're noticing that they're peeing and things like this. So I always talk about following the child, and it might be possible that that child is ready to toilet train or toilet learn. But sometimes what I find is that actually it ends up to be a 6-month process of a lot of peeing on the floor, and you have to be very patient and encouraging all the time and not lose your temper for it to be a positive experience. And so when I've worked with a lot of parents, I actually find that it's a lot later than 18 months when they're able to hold it in, get to the potty and pee on the potty regularly. And so instead, usually what I do is scaffold skills in the meantime. I offer the advice that, you can get your bathroom ready. You can have a pile of cloths at the ready so that when there's pee on the floor, you can go and wipe it up. There's a pile of dry pants so that they can start to get themselves changed, and a bucket where they can put their wet clothes, because there will be wet clothes as they're practicing. So everything's already ready. I'd have a potty available or a step stool with a seat. We call them verkleiners here, but in English, the toilet seats that are slightly smaller and sit on top. Mm-hmm. I don't even know the English word anymore. I've lived in Holland for 10 years. Do you know the word?
They're smaller toilet seats. I mean, the training toilet seat, I don't know the specific name, but there's an adjustment that you can put on the adult toilet that's just smaller so they don't feel they're going to fall through. Yeah.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. So setting up so they can have success in the bathroom, and then I'd offer the potty or the toilet at regular times during the day. So maybe at a nappy change, I would say, okay, now you can sit on the potty. And it's not about what has to happen there, but just that they're getting into the practice and the routine, and that they're not afraid of sitting on the potty and those kind of things. And then gradually, one day a PP comes and, they're really excited, and then you can flush it down the toilet and these kind of things. So I think she also asked about consistency, is that she's not sure that she's going to be able to get every pee on the toilet and these kind of things. And I think that in general, we like it to be as consistent as possible so that you can. But of course, sometimes we're riding in Amsterdam and you need to get from A to B, and it's an hour cycle. And maybe you just say, listen, I'm going to put a nappy on over your underpants, and you just go through some of these exceptional things, and it's going to all even out in the end. But during that first week or two, when it's when they're really trying, there may be times when you're not 100% consistent in the actual thing. I know someone was going on a long flight and they'd just finished toilet training, but they thought, this is not the place where I need to have to change my child, and those airplane toilets are really scary. They're very noisy and can feel very claustrophobic. So she said, I know that normally we do this, but today we're going to wear the diaper. And I think as long they understand, they all understand that that's like an exception. And as long as it's not an exception every other moment, then I think that mostly she's being quite consistent, and to see how it goes.
Right. And I would add also to this mom from Brisbane who sent that question, she's concerned about that it's kind of cold in the mornings and such. So for me, it's really about, being consistent with one of the times in the day where you can be consistent. So if in the morning you're hesitant and all this, then wait until maybe the nap time and so forth. And Simone, I really like the way you described, all of the putting in place. I like to call that just toilet awareness, that it's really about setting up that environment, letting the child know this is a different way of doing it. It's here for you. And it's not necessarily what, we call this training, and that, some people try to sell you that you can train a child in over the weekend and so forth. It's a long process. It's a new way of doing things. It's a new routine. So it's really about first that awareness, setting up the environment, and then, like you said, showing them the skills, and then they kind of, take over and own it, and then become toilet independent, which is a really important step in their independence. And they are so proud when they're able to do it. I will add one suggestion is when you are in that phase of, learning to be toilet independent, is wherever you go, restaurants, friend's house, the zoo, the park, I always encourage to investigate where the bathroom is. It's like, let's go find out where the bathroom is, so that there's always this reassurance that I know ahead of time that if I need to go, I know where it is. So I know when I was in that stage with my children, anywhere we would go, that's the first thing we would do is like, let's go find out where the bathroom is, just in case. It wasn't necessarily to go, but it was just to know and feel reassured that if need be, we knew where it was. So yes.
Yeah. That's very useful, definitely. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of children get acquainted with our bathroom at playgroup on their way into the classroom.
Yeah. And also, there's also the skill of washing the hands, like you were saying, kind of setting them up to all the skills. Like washing hands is an important part of toilet independence. And I know some of the homes that I have worked in, that's one of the first things that I suggest is to actually have a step stool so that they can get to the water and wash their own hands, because unfortunately there's many homes where that isn't available for the young child, and they're still very dependent on the adult to be able to do those things. So that would definitely be another one. Okay, so let me see if we have some more questions here. 21-month-old daughter is challenging us. She is doing something wrong and she knows it. They always know, don't they? For example, hitting us or putting things in her mouth like coins or stones, which she never did before, just to get our attention. We understand. We are aware that this might be a reaction of a daily life change, but we are nevertheless quite present parents. She goes to daycare, and the rest of the time we're always with her. She is the only child now, and she started this behavior at daycare, as well as, for example, spilling water and all this. So I guess they're asking like how to redirect the unwanted behavior from a 21-month-old. Like, how do you help them get the attention that they're seeking? Because oftentimes when they're doing, behavior that they know, they kind of look at you like, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways. How do you suggest parents kind of help them redirect and just have a positive behavior?
So there's a range of behaviors there. Some of them are safety things, like them putting things in their mouth, and some of them are just kind of irritating and exploring, like spilling water on a table and seeing what happens, which we kind of talked about earlier. So I guess for things like putting something into their mouth, about to touch the oven and things like that, I'm quite clear, like, I can't let you put that in your mouth, and I'm going to hold it your hand, and I'm going to make sure that it doesn't go in your mouth, Or sometimes I often just say, look, the coin goes in the box. And because they're actually around that age where they can do the activity, it's more interesting than putting it in their mouth. So we then focus on the activity and what it's for. If they were touching the oven, that's a big no. And I would pick them up and say, oven's hot. And I'd really pick it up and move them so that they're physically getting the idea. And they'll probably go straight back and see if I still mean it. And then they might wake up from their nap and go to the oven again. to see if that limit still applies. So they're really in a limit setting, testing limits around 21 months onwards, or some as early as 12 months, to see, does that rule apply now? Does it apply to me as well? Like sometimes in the class, I'll set a limit with a child, and then a child next to me will do the same thing to see if it applies to them. And I've even had it happen to multiple children. So they're testing us. And I honestly have to empathize with you, because I think even after over 10 years of working in a Montessori classroom, my kids are now 15 and 14. The hardest part for me is setting the limit, because often I know it's going to upset them. I was using the example of a little girl who was dropping these beads onto the floor. And she was, again, looking at me to see what my reaction would be. And so a few times said, oh, they go in here, and I was showing her what the activity was for. She wasn't interested in what the activity was for. She was interested in emptying them. So I took the bowl and I said, here, you can have one at a time. And then she still was dropping them on the floor. So then I'm holding the bowl and I say, you really want the bowl? You really want to put them thing? And I'll try again. But it didn't. So I said, I'm going to put the bowl up now. And I knew that was going to make her very upset. And she really melted down. She was very, very upset. But I had said, I felt very calm, and then I was like, yeah, you're really sad because you really wanted to play with that. And I just empathized with her, and I connected with her until she felt heard. And then I said, let's have a look at this. And I brought over. I don't want to redirect and not acknowledge their feelings, right. But once I feel like they're heard and you can feel their body soften a little bit, then I feel like it's okay. I'm going to start stretching these elastics over the pegboard, and she was into the next activity. So I'm curious when she comes into class if we still have the same thing next week.
Right. And that is so important of what you say, and of that whole, that whole brain development, of how it's so important to really connect with them before you can bring in any solution or correction. So I love what you said about just, empathizing and just letting her know that you understand, and yes, she's upset, but you also showed that you were in control, and that she can trust you, because you said what you would do, that you would need to take them away if that continued. So it's really important to be consistent with what we say we're going to do. But at the same time, like you say, really acknowledge their feelings. Like, she is, having a hard time with the fact that you took it away. So let her process that, and then, redirect, as opposed to, oftentimes we tend to tell children, oh, it's okay. You don't need to cry. Like, it's okay. Here, do this. When no, they are upset. Let's give them, empower them to feel their feelings, as deep as they need to be able to move forward. So. Very good point.
It's really interesting. I've been talking to a lot of parents lately about how uncomfortable we actually feel with anger and sadness. And it's really hard to allow those big feelings, because sometimes we can't even accept them in ourselves. So I was feeling a little bit homesick, I was saying, because my parents had been in town. And I was thinking, I shouldn't be homesick. I'm going to be seeing them soon, and these kind of things. And then that was me cycling on my bike, by the way. That was that action. And I was telling myself I shouldn't be sad. And then actually, I'm like, it's okay to feel sad. You do live a long way from your family, and it's been nearly 2 years. You don't get to see them often. So, yeah, I can feel sad. And then the emotion has to go somewhere. So all of a sudden I thought, oh, I don't feel that anymore. It has gone, but it's allowing, even in ourselves, these big, ugly, angry, big feelings that happen.
Yeah, and it's so true, when you talk about what it brings out in us and making us uncomfortable. I mean, I often talk to parents about what is it triggering in you, like being aware of what our children, bring up. I work a lot with parents, and the other day I was doing a positive discipline workshop. And there's one activity where we really act out being kind of, this big adult, pointing to a child. And one woman just broke down and was in tears, because I think it just brought up a lot of, what her childhood had been like. So just being aware and really letting the child kind of help us sometimes heal what what some of the issues were, but remembering that they're not theirs, that we need to be kind of in tune with our emotions. And like you say, if you're homesick, you're homesick. It's okay to be homesick. Just acknowledge that and give yourself acknowledge that that's okay and there's reason for it, and not try to put things under the rug like we tend to do a lot. So yeah, very good point.
And there's one other thing, is that it's going to take a whole lot of repetition for the behavior to change. And it's just acknowledging that it's not going to be once. These kind of positive discipline approaches is just being very consistent and understanding and empathetic, but understanding that it's not a quick fix. So timeout might get you a result where they stop, but actually it might compromise your relationship in the long term. And this is a long-term approach, that we're going to do it in a respectful way to set our limits. But yeah, it's going to take some patience as well from our behalf. And sometimes I get parents to just write themselves in a notebook, oh, that didn't go well, and I'm going to brainstorm later tonight, like what I could have done instead, because at that moment, that's how I responded, but actually I got it wrong. The other thing is if you get to the point where you snap and you shout, then it's just a human response, and you can say, I'm really sorry, Mummy shouldn't have shouted. What I needed to say was this and this, but I was really upset. I'm really sorry I shouted. So it's an opportunity to apologize and model that.
Totally. And that is a very, very good point, because being able to be honest with oneself that we didn't act the way that we hoped to act, or that we realized that we didn't, act well. It's really important to model to our children that we are also humans, and that we make mistakes, and that mistakes are wonderful opportunities to better ourselves and to try, to do better next time. So I know sometimes it seems counterintuitive for parents to apologize to their children, but I think it's really important and a beautiful role model for our children to be able to say, you know what, that wasn't okay to speak to you that way. I apologize, and I'm going to try to do better next time. And that's it. It's just we're learning every day with them. So we're not perfect, and it's not about being perfect parents and or having perfect children, because that is impossible. I do have one question. If you're ready to move on. Lisa on the chat was talking about sharing again, and I think this is a really important point to talk about. Is for me is the understanding of the developmental readiness to share and the understanding of sharing. I think we tend to request of our children to share when they're not ready to. So how do you deal with that with the toddlers of, they often will take things out of each other's hands, or want to use the same toy. I know you touched a little bit on that, but she's asking, like, once you've started saying please share, or please give it back, or please can you put on, is there any way of going back, and what language should we use to facilitate this? And Lisa feels that she is failing in this area, so I want to give her some reassurance.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. In Holland, they have a phrase that they use at the playground all the time, which is samen delen, samen spelen, which means we play together, we share together. And I think that it's not always developmentally appropriate. So a baby up to about 14 months probably will be quite easygoing with what they're holding on to. If someone takes it out of their hand, they'll just turn around and pick up another toy. And I think it's probably very wise that they then move into the toddler group around 14, 16 months, because then they really hold on to things, and they really, like we talked before, want to finish the activity that they're working on. They're working to master it, and they're building concentration. They don't want someone to take a piece of their toy, and they're doing a lot of parallel play. So it's often not till around 2.5 years to 3 years where they might be able to want to actually play and collaborate on something. So actually, like the please share, we have to be much more specific. We want them maybe to share by taking turns. So actually it's like, let's wait our turn. They're having a turn. Yeah, it's difficult to wait. You're finding you really want to touch it. I can see you're reaching out your hand. I'm going to hold your hand here. We can look with our eyes, and helping them manage that feeling. And if they really can't keep their hands to themselves, I might then help them. We'll come back and we'll see it soon. I also teach the child whose work it is to say it will be available soon. So it's actually helping the child. So instead of me having to say, please don't touch, please give it back, I can say, oh, Anna, would you like to say it will be available soon, and help them with their words. So I feel like I'm often translating for them. I really find that a fun role, like kind of just guiding, not controlling the situation, seeing how I can go. Because I don't think that I should then start snatching it out of the other child's hand who's taken the piece, and then I'm just modeling, rough hands and things like this. I think last live show, we were talking about using soft hands, when we talk and when we touch and things like that. And often I might say something like, they'll give the piece back when they see that you need that piece. And sometimes just that trust that the child will do, it actually sometimes happens that they do just give it back when they're ready. So
and I like what you say about trust, because I think that we tend to want to intervene and kind of, again, police the situation. But I have seen, when you kind of pull back and observe, children will take things out of each other's hands. But you know what? They find solutions. Another child might get something else and give it to them or whatever. So sometimes it's, unless it's, in a situation like yours where it's a community and they're working on activities and such, but when they're just playing and together and having social interaction, to me that is part of the learning, and that we need to sometimes just take a little bit of time to observe and see what solutions they're going to come up with, as opposed to wanting to step in right away and you need to share, or wait your turn, or whatever. Because sometimes a child might have something in their hand, another child comes along, takes it away, they find something else, they didn't even it doesn't matter to them. So kind of letting them figure it out too is very important.
And Jeanne-Marie, there was a question on the chat room right before we started the show, I think actually before you even got online, from Katka. So I've scrolled back to write it down, and she asked how she could communicate with her family the way that she's wanting to parent, like this Montessori style and positive discipline, to other people that her child meets, because sometimes there's a misunderstanding that we're not doing anything because we're a little bit like seeing how the situation unfolds, observing them, giving them the words, not putting them into timeout when they've hit or something like this. But I think it's a really good question. Do you want me to answer it, or do you want to answer it? It's up to you.
No, I mean, go ahead. I have my opinions. I'm sure you have some good ones. Let's see. How do you advise parents of children who are wanting to parent differently, and how do they communicate that to their family members?
I was talking about this with a parent this week in class, because she was saying that in the UK, people were shouting at their kids in the playground, and then her sister thought that she wasn't intervening enough with her own child, and actually started disciplining them for her, and it made her feel very uncomfortable because it's not the way that she parented her son. And so we were talking about that sometimes the thing that parents doing positive discipline miss is the making amends. So they've acknowledged that we don't hit, or we use our words and can use your words, but sometimes we forget to go the last step, which is to help the child to make amends for what they've done wrong. We don't put them into timeout, we don't punish them, we don't give them a consequence like you can't have an ice cream 3 hours later, but we can make amends by a young child saying, oh, I can see they're crying, would you like to get a tissue, would you like to check they're okay, and that kind of thing. And I think when sometimes we miss that bit, then we look like we're very laissez-faire parents, and that we let our child do everything. So we talked about that, and I think that can be very helpful, that we talk about how punishment in prison often leads to reoffenders, and parents and older people can understand that, and they might think, oh yeah, they're right, but community service, or where the person has to make amends for what they've done wrong, often has a better success and outcome. So you can say, oh, this is really interesting research, and this is what we found, or this is the kind of principles that we're applying. So why we don't punish our kids and things like that. And also how important it is for children to be able to build their own sense of self rather than waiting for an external praise, a sticker, or shaming or blaming, you know, all the external things. Instead, I'm trying to build from my child for them to build it themselves. And it does take some changes, but I think observant people will actually really admire your parenting and think, wow, look how calm she is remaining. She's guiding them through the world and everything that's throwing at them, the good things and the bad things. That's when we show up as good parents. So hopefully they actually get inspired by the way you're parenting and not thinking, oh, she should be doing it differently.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, to me, I know that a lot of the parents that I work with do struggle with that of getting the rest of the family on board. And this can sometimes happen just also with the two parents, that, you know, we have different ways of wanting to interact with our children. So it's really important to have a, you know, honest conversation, if at all possible, to have some literature too that you can share about brain development and what you know, like you were saying about what punishment does. I mean, punishment brings out revenge, retreat, or you know, resentment. So are those really things that we want long-term for our children? So I always like to actually have family meetings, and I do this with some of the families that I work with, where we have everybody that is going to be interacting with the child so that I can explain kind of the Montessori philosophy, the positive discipline, conscious parenting to everybody, so that they're all hearing the same thing at the same time, and then they can really have a conversation about it. The other thing that I really encourage is, if you can, is to do some of like the positive discipline workshops, which are very interactive and are very experiential, so that you actually feel in your body and how it feels to be a child who is, you know, being put in timeout or being punished and so forth. And adults really often have kind of that light bulb moment of going, oh yeah, that did not feel right. Okay, there's got to be a better way. So it's just an awareness. You know, so many parents I hear, you know, say, well, you know, that's how I was brought up, and I came out, you know, okay or fine. But is that really what we want for our children? So it's just, you know, having that conversation. And sometimes, you know, unfortunately, I know some families it's hard, but you just have to put your foot down and say, you know, I'm the parent, this is how I want to parent. If you want to be here, you know, I need you to abide by my rules. I mean, it's kind of just like talking with toddlers, where you kind of have to set the limits and repeat and you know, deal with it also that way.
Great. I also noticed that Sylvia Roberts is on the call, and she sent in a message before the call. It just came in like 45 minutes before, and she asked what to do if a 15 to 18-month-old takes a work from the shelf, works on a mat, lets it go and to choose a new work and a new mat. So she's got two mats and two works on the floor, and the child's concentrating on the new work. Do you recommend to take the first work away yourself and say nothing so that you don't disturb the child, or wait until the child's finished with the second work to put everything away? And I thought that was quite a useful question.
Yes. So what would you recommend? Would you put the work away, or would you let them finish?
I definitely wouldn't stop them and interrupt them and say, come, we need to pack away the first work, because if they're already deep in concentration, then I wouldn't. If we're at home, then I probably would allow the other work to sit there, and maybe we'll pack them both up when they're finished. And it just depends how much space it was taking up. And to be clear, because it's really, if you've got two mats out, no one knows whether it's available or not. So I might start modeling packing it away in a classroom, so that the other people know where the activity goes and know that it's available for use.
So we have another question for you, Simone, about toddlers and mathematics. Catherine asks, should we start learning numbers and counting with toddlers? I've heard opinions that numbers are abstract things and we should present them later. And this is specifically to you, Simone. Do you have a lot of math activities in your classroom?
Great, yeah. I do not have a lot of specific math material in our classroom, like no numbers at all, except that I use numbers a lot in my daily life and when I'm just talking to the children very normally. When my kids were small, we had a lot of stairs in our house, so we would count every day 1, 2, 3, 4. And what's really nice about stair counting or counting oranges as you're putting them into the fridge is they're learning one-to-one correspondence, which is that not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which they know the numbers, but they don't really know what that means, so that they can attach it to each thing. But we do have a lot of what we would say preparation for math activities in the toddler environment. So a lot of sequencing, so biggest to smallest. So any of those stacking rings or nesting boxes is all about learning which is biggest and which is smaller. And then we have a lot of pegboards where they could learn sequencing or line up all of the yellows together and the reds together and the purple, and the blues together, and they're all 10 by 10. So there's a lot of preparation, indirect preparation, but actually no sandpaper numbers, red rods, no number rods, because if you had a school where you had 2.5-year-olds who are maybe starting to get interested in numbers, you could go and visit the 3 to 6 environment and they could see them in their proper space. So my answer is no.
Yeah, I would just, if there is a child that's interested, it's more, as how Montessori introduces numbers, it's really about first the quantities. So it's really about that sensorial, grasping. So if they're setting the table of, asking for 3 forks and really having them put the 3 forks in their hands, that they can feel that 3 forks is different than 1 fork. But the actual symbols, you're right, is pretty abstract, and that actually comes later once they have worked with the red rod, the number rod, the quantities, and then they associate the symbols. So yeah, I've never seen any type of math activities other than what you were describing that are more like sensorial experiences in the toddler environments. Definitely.
I have seen online for sale these miniature versions of the cylinder blocks and things like this that I've seen in toddler environments, and I'm very careful that I really think that it's a very clear definition, and also you want them to grow into these things, not just play with them as toys. You want them to really understand the sensorial material as sensorial material when they move into their next 3 to 6 classroom.
Yeah. So I think we have pretty much answered everybody's question. There was a question from somebody in Montpellier about 6 to 9 class, already 2 years, but shows little interest in math. I talked to teachers, they said that it will come, but I worry if she starts to develop gaps in math. So this is, a question for an older child. I don't know if you want to answer this, Simone. I'm not familiar with the 6 to 9 classroom. I mean, all I know is, the words of reassurance that I would say is that if, try to kind of intrigue her with math concepts in different ways, but sometimes, if they're not that drawn to it or that interested, I don't feel that that's going to be a handicap. Like, it will come eventually, and forcing it on the child is probably going to do the contrary of what we want. So I would go along with trusting the teachers that are letting you know that, it's going to come in its own time.
Yeah, I think that I would also say the same, and that you can just talk about it a lot, as Jeanne-Marie says, in daily life. So if they're not getting any concept of numbers, kind of like I was talking about with toddlers, just counting as you go places, getting them introducing them to the amounts on the price tags in a supermarket, just that they see numbers in their daily life. There's clocks and different things like this. They see traditional clocks and how hands work, because it doesn't always have to be digital. Lots of things like that. And yeah, if they're interested in language, then maybe they might want to count all the adjectives on a page, rather than actually with the material. And so there's maybe ways that you can engage them through an area that they are interested in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And really just being aware that the mathematical mind is in everybody. We all have it. We all have to figure out, what time should I get up to get there on time? We're always we always are computing something. So we all have it within us. And so it's, like Simone says, it's more about just dialoguing with it in a natural way of maybe, in the supermarket or at home or whatever, and just kind of making it part of just a normal language, and not getting stuck on, mathematics and are they going to know their tables and so forth. So yeah, making it more natural. We do have one more question, Simone, that just came in from our friend Sanda Runu, which I never know if I'm pronouncing it properly, but she's asking, how do we deal with children that are picking up behavior from other children? So, unwanted behavior that they're picking up, whether at a park, at a daycare, or such. How do you go about dealing with that?
I do empathize with you. Again, it's a really difficult one because we like to think, oh, we're very calm at home and we show them how we use our gentle hands. And then just in daily life, they're going to pick up that not everyone speaks like that. So it's natural. And I guess doing a lot of the same things that we've talked about by setting limits is like, these are the rules at our house and that might be what they do at their house. And they're very clear, like if there's different rules at daycare or if they push. It's like, oh, in our house, we're gentle with each other. And so showing them and just being consistent with your own rules, I think is basically all you can do. You can't stop them picking up behavior. Modeling the behavior is better than even having a rule. It's like, actually, they don't see me ever tell a white lie, so they're not going to learn white lies, So just saying, oh, mum's on the telephone when she's not, they don't even pick up those behaviors. So I think just keep modeling the behaviors that are good for you. Keep reminding them of how you are in your house and that there might be different rules in different places.
That, and also having a conversation with them. I mean, this is a little bit later when they can, reason a little bit more, but also just kind of question them, like, how do you think how does it make you feel? Like, if there's a behavior that you're seeing, to kind of have them, think through what that might feel like to the other child or to them and such, so that they also develop that notion of compassion and empathy for the other children.
Great. Well, it's already getting to 9 o'clock.
Yes. Time flies when we're having fun, huh?
I know, we could chat Montessori all night, and we're going to do it again after our summer break.
Yes.
Some people may not have heard at the beginning of the show is that the Montessori show is closed for 2 months, so June and July. Jeanne-Marie is going to be traveling to France, and I'm going to be traveling to Australia. And a lot of people will be traveling, so we're going to be reconnecting here at the end of August. Do you have the date, Jeanne-Marie?
I think it's August 26th. It's the last Friday of August, so August 26th, I'm pretty sure.
So as usual, we'll send you the link the week before so that you don't forget to join us. And thank you so much for all being here. Don't forget that you can also work with Jeanne-Marie and I in different capacities. Jeanne-Marie is always offering a free call to get to know her work. Would you like to talk more about that?
Well, I do a lot of private Montessori mentoring with families. So I work one-on-one with families. I have a 10-month program that I do. So you're more than welcome to book a time to speak with me. It's on my website down at the bottom. The tab, it says looking for more. Answer any of your questions. I am working on creating also a group program that I will probably start at the end of the year. And I have on my website also a lot of little videos that I've prepared for you of how to present activities and so forth. So you're welcome to either sign up for a call or my newsletter and receive all of that information in your inbox.
And if you're in Amsterdam, you'd be most welcome to join our classes at Jacaranda Tree Montessori, or to come to one of our workshops. And I also have online courses for setting up your home Montessori style, and there are more in the pipeline that I'm hoping to launch later this year. So it's been great to see you all. Thanks again, Jeanne-Marie, for joining me.
Yes, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Have a wonderful summer, and hopefully we can connect sometime during the summer, but enjoy your time in Australia.
See you later.
All righty. Bye.
Bye.